Greetings, shalom. What I had come to mind was the part of it, the title there, do us in or do us in. Then the point of that came to mind was on sounding the same and looking the same, even though this looks literally different with spelling. And in other words, or words could be used that sound and look the same but have different meaning, but that's not the point. It's being used as an example. And in the example, I'm putting light to do us in, but I'm putting darkness to do us in. So the first one is light, good, and truth. And the next one is evil, darkness, and lies. And this is what's inside the heart. For an understanding, there's what's inside without light. It looks the same. It doesn't matter what's in the darkness. It looks the same because it's blind. But this is something that would be required by us to acknowledge the truth, because it's big. To deny it is to deny all things, all truth, everything, and we don't have him. Messiah says, this is, and this reason I came, this is the judgment. That those who see may be blind, and those who are blind may see. And that's a big judgment. It sort of wraps everything up in a few words, where if we just acknowledge the truth, then we get understanding, sight. But if we don't acknowledge whatever the truth is, then we don't get understanding and sight, but we think we have it, and that's what deception would be. But do us in and do us in sounds the same when you say it like that, without any distinction. It sounds the same, but it doesn't mean the same thing, obviously, as do us in, which I'm just using as an example to put and say that's light, that's good, that's truth, and do a sin is darkness, evil, and lies. But inside the heart, this is something like what it looks like spiritually, sounds like. Or, someone, I could ask, which one am I thinking about now, light or darkness? And someone says, do us in. It's already a problem right from the start. But if he guesses the right one, it's a guess. And if something's a guess, it's not through truth, through knowledge, through truth, through understanding. So it didn't choose the right one, do us in. It just guessed the right one. And that's how it chose it. But it didn't choose it with understanding why it chose it. Otherwise, it couldn't be called a guess. And so the point of this is how deceptive and tricky it is without the Father in the heart, in our mind, for anything. Anything and everything looks like this without his light. And this is something that mankind would like to reject and doesn't accept, that he's this blind spiritually about everything. And those in Messiah are still blind to what we need to learn. But this is what we acknowledge, the truth, that we're blind without him. That's who we are, that we're deceitful without him. As Adam and Eve, the only thing they did was the dark thing, the deceptive thing, the trick, the sin. And there's no record of them choosing the good thing, which the Father showed me that's a big teaching all by itself, that they didn't do the good, right thing because they didn't know the difference between good and evil. Teaching us the difference between the good and evil in the heart is not seen. It looks the same. So it doesn't matter which one someone looks like they do, it's all the same. So then this world's incredibly deceptive, because you have to discern between the images, what something looks and sounds like, between the reality, the spiritual things, the real reasons why someone is doing something, intentions of the heart, thoughts and intentions. Genesis, that every thought and intention of the heart is only evil continually. And that just stands out to me in Genesis because it just wraps everything up. It's powerful. Every thought and intent speaking of mankind, as someone can read that there, is every thought and intent is only evil continually. But man's definition of evil is not the definition and understanding of real evil. And it's proven pretty quickly, because if it looks good and sounds good, calling it evil, if it's evil, is an abomination to him. And he'll say you're a retard and you're an idiot, you're evil for calling good evil. That's how much enmity there is between darkness and light, and truth and lies. It's enmity. But no one in the heart that's in darkness believes their works can be seen. That's what's being hidden. That's why Adam and Eve hide. They think they can hide from the Creator and people. And if you cover yourself, now no one can see your nakedness or sin. But the Father sees right through it. It's a false cover. It's self-cover. It's self-righteous. And this is to be seen in spirit, the meaning. It's powerful when the Father gives it. It must be seen. We need to learn it, because this is what all mankind is already doing and is. And this is why people are in darkness and death, because of this unbelief and sin continually that produces that. It's authoritative, but someone can say, I'm not in death, it's easy to do that. But they can't lie about anything that's actually true and what's inside them. They cannot lie about. They can lie, but you can't actually lie. It's a lie because of the truth being true. But that's believing a lie is the deception. I don't know that there's anything that could be called deception that's believing the actual real truth, but it would have to be believing a lie. And that involves everything. If it's a lie and someone believes it, it's believing a lie. Now, coming out of Egypt is coming out of the lies, and it's not 4 days, but it's 40 years. So this is not something done overnight. It's not easy. It's a war, and it's traveling in the desert with not much life around. And when it looks like you're going to die, water comes to the stiff-necked people. And when it looks like they're going to die, food from above comes, the manna, the bread from heaven, and feeds them, literally, saves them. Now, to the world, this is incredibly stupid. As I've seen a few years ago, I stumbled across something with Snoop Dogg or something, and who gets lost in the desert for 40 years, mocking it while he's wearing Santa clothing, while he's wearing Santa clothing. You can only be a fool for mocking truth and doing evil and sin. That's the only pathway the Father has allowed for a judgment, is the person mocking and attacking truth ends up being the fool themselves, because they're not seeing the understanding and why we read that, because it just carnally sounds stupid to someone because they're wise. I wouldn't get lost in the desert for 40 years. Now, how embarrassing would that be if what that means that they actually are lost, and it's for at least that long or longer if they live that long in the spiritual desert, lost. How embarrassing and shameful, if that's what it means, whatever the meaning is, that's their reality while they mock those words, and that's what blind is, speaking out of ignorance and darkness, not seeing what it needs to see, not accepting, not giving up that soul, that old man. And that's what's required to obey the Creator's voice, of which Adam and Eve disobeys. Everyone does. Everyone's done it. Everyone's in sin and deceived first. It's already true. It's been all the believers too first. There's a reason, for them to be thankful, because they were that first. But obviously this isn't seen when someone's blind and they attack and say, what, are you better than everyone? It's all over his word that this is what they are first. How come they don't believe it? See, they don't believe the scriptures when it comes to reality, that the Father is saving a people continually, and in the way save them from who and what they are to continue that path. And is saving continually. We need to trust in him that this is what he does, that he's doing this for a few. They don't believe this truth and testimony. When, the darkness, it just attacks everything. They don't believe this can happen. Secretly, they want some kind of something, digging for something. When truth comes to their face, it's rejected. So often, most of the times, that's what happens. The truth came right to their face and they killed him. That's the very Father speaking the truth in Messiah. So Messiah speaking out of hearing from the Father, and they killed him. That's pretty bad discernment. It's zero discernment. It's blind. Otherwise, it would never do such a wicked thing. And not only that, he was of them, of the Hebrew people, from the literal line of Abraham, as he had to be, from the literal seed of Abraham. Otherwise, it would have no meaning. Otherwise, they would have already attacked him and said, you're a wicked Gentile sinner, because that was their understanding only, the literal seed of Abraham only, not seeing what it really means and what it's pointing to, heavenly. That it's not about the flesh thing. It's not the highest thing. It doesn't prove anything by itself. They would have found out that he's not from the line. They knew he was from there. They couldn't refute it. They knew that Mary and Joseph was his mom and dad, earthly, to make the distinction now, versus having the Father in us, spiritual. Even that doesn't sound right to me, in that it kind of makes it sound a little bit like some kind of nothingness, but it's not. It's the Father himself in us. But that's the spiritual understanding and reality. That's what Father is. Born from him, born from above now, and not by flesh and man's will. Where Ishmael is born according to the flesh, representing. If someone can see, there's no literal difference between Isaac and Ishmael. They were both born according to the flesh, but the difference that represents the difference naturally is that he wouldn't have been able to be born unless it was the Father's literal direct miracle that he made it to be so. And that's how he shows us that. And we read that the apostle goes back to that the one born of the flesh represents man's corrupt will and his ability, and that's what he can do. But the other one does not come from man's will. Zero. There's no mixing here. It's all or nothing. 100 and 0 are the numbers. 0 from man, all from the Creator, because it was literally impossible, as they laughed. Laughing at the miracle, laughing at the power of the Creator. You can't do that. I'm too old. So now he made it possible. And this one represents those of that seed from Isaac. This one will be called the spiritual seed of Abraham, connected to those born by the Creator's will and purpose. But those that are of the flesh are still just born of man only. They only were born once so far. They weren't born again yet, born from above. It just shocks me how the church world teaches their false gods and doctrine and does away with all truth with this evil. Does away with everything that it's connected to, which means it's never on their mind, all the truth and meaning when a lie is believed. It's the difference inside someone, which is everything, not outside only. Because someone believes Messiah is God the Creator, it destroys everything that's true, because you cannot see or understand or have the thoughts of truth inside believing a lie. It's not possible. So they can't see and understand how Messiah is born from the seed of David and also born from above, from his birth. You can't see. Why? People might make fun and say, I'm not blind. I'm not like that great teacher, so-called, that doesn't understand what being born again, that it's not from a mother's womb again the second time. But that is their only understanding in reality, not for words. In reality, inside them, they don't see, because it has to be given. Even though the truth ends up being simple, it still has to be given. It's blind to the truth. That's what he gives. The truth on who Messiah is. That's why we read that becomes very dumb and stupid and pointless without this truth and understanding. Who do you say I am? Some say this, some say that, but who do you say I am? You're the Messiah, the Son of the living Elohim. And Messiah says, man did not reveal that to you, but that came from the Father directly. He reveals that to you. Do they understand what this means? It's not about being able to say the word Son of Elohim, because many, many have done that. Many do this, just saying the words. It's what it means that's not coming from below, but comes from the Father above, to know what the Son of Elohim means. But this can't be, how do you prove or give these things? By speaking, by doing or writing, by doing anything. Just sharing what I see, and the works prove they don't know. I mean, you can't know who Messiah is when someone believes in the heart that he's from, like as they say, from like God's physical seed or something, and he impregnated Mary and committed adultery with another man's woman. They don't think this stands. They think the Father does adultery. Not that they say that, but that they're okay with that. It never crosses someone's mind that that's adultery, getting another man's woman pregnant. That's not the married person. This is great blasphemy. And the Father's mercy is pretty severe for all the blasphemy and lies going on him, on truth, and it's destroying people for real. And they're able to move and breathe and live and end up with many carnal things, many of them, and nice houses and nice things like we read in Scripture, and they forget who the Creator is. So then this world's tricky, and the lust of it, the things in and of the world, get someone's heart to fade away and just get worse and worse, because they trust and believe and work for those things instead of working for the Creator, who will already give us what we need for doing the first and only thing, seeking the kingdom first, the Creator first. It's a promise. That's why we read it. They don't believe this promise, but it's easy to talk in this world when everyone has what they literally need, physically need, to get the picture, and just say, I believe those words. Yeah, but every single real test that came in life and that would come and prove that someone didn't believe it, when the actual testing comes that puts real pressure on, they secretly failed every time, but they don't tell anyone that. They don't believe that's happening. That he will provide for his people, even the lower literal things, but not to seek those things. He knows you need them. Don't seek them with the heart. Zero at all. And commanding that to someone directly out of the blue and saying you must do it perfectly is wicked, while we also say this is what we have to do. Because if they understood what this means and what it's requiring, it's huge. It's putting a chain over someone and balls and chains on them to just say, do it now, do it. They don't know what they do when they command like this. But that's the reality. That's what happens in real life when someone does this commanding carnal. This work goes on inside and works only for destruction for someone. That's what it does, but they don't think that. They won't acknowledge that. That's true. They don't see that they do that. The Pharisees don't put heavy yokes on people and burden and bondage on them. They never thought they did that, not a day in their life, and yet that's what they did. That's all they did with his law, even. You must be circumcised first. And what we're reading there is not about literal circumcision by itself, but what it represents and means. And that means flesh things, carnality. You have to do these things and complete them first. Then you can believe in Messiah. You know, there's a reality to this, and then there's just saying the words and doctrine. But it's belief first. Who can deny it? In Messiah now, this is what believers do. It's not a joke. Not doing the works of the Father is proof someone's not a believer. That never does it. Never does the works in the heart. It's nothing to prove to the world. These works are happening within, and it's connected to other things, but it's specifically about within, the things and that he changes within us, which there's much to think about and be changed, more than just anybody would ever think from the beginning. Not able to think of it. It's what learning is. There's a lot to do and remember. Every thought, every belief, every work counts, and everything is judged. So that's very bad news, and it's very good news. But it's bad news in that those against him, it's very bad news. But those that are believing in him, for him, that means in what we do, they see the reality that if we do what's righteous, then the same will be reaped from what someone sows, which makes a difference in the person life. In doing sin causes death. You know, this is real. This is not theories. It's not for right doctrine only, and that's it. Where a lot of words could be said that are right, but then we're speaking of the real meaning of these things. Every thought, every belief, thought, and intention someone does to someone matters. But, you know, we read that the rod is for the fool's back. And so they, you know, when we're blind, you just keep getting beaten and beaten and beaten, and you never see or acknowledge that it's for a reason. Believers should be turning around after they get beaten, find out what's going on, find out why it's happening. Is it a test? Is it some sin, which is also a part, you know, test also, as everything is. That there's a reason for everything, and of course we can't find out all these judgments that he's doing on all people, not speaking of that. It's learning them and seeing something for self and seeing more, to see them for what they are. We do read to learn. So we read many scriptures on learning his judgments. So someone that instantly says this is not so, I mean, they just denied tons of scriptures that teach to learn his judgments, that they're real, and that the many called, they don't believe this, they don't do this. We read many scriptures on that. They ignore and act as if they're not there. We read all that, not truly believing in them, meaning for every work, no matter what it is, there's a judgment, that you're not free, like the free will, carnality, and pride, like we're the creator, you could do whatever you want. There's no such reality, because for every work there's a judgment. That means it's for every work there's a judgment. So then you can do evil, but not without being judged. That means it's not free, like it would be thought in someone's mind in darkness. You're not free. You know, someone says, bad luck, crap luck, you know, and they're in some deep sin just for a picture, I guess. Not speaking about carnal things only, but like, you know, if someone's in homosexuality, to get the picture obvious, and then just crap happens. No, it doesn't. It's a wicked. It's being judged. But then someone says, don't judge me, because most of the time when people do that, they are judging wickedly. But that can't change the righteous judgment and what truth and what sin is and what it's not. Shouldn't change that. Can't change that. It is evil. We can say it's evil without doing wicked judgment automatically. That's said to protect their sin. that if you say these words, it's automatically wicked judgment, in that it's condemning someone, it's stepping on them, it's trashing them, don't judge me. No, it's not automatic. Just because most would do it does not make it automatic. And if you apply their reasoning, this is what someone can do a lot to prove something out. With one way is to just continue their reasoning with something else in life or with his word. That means that if we just read his word, it's already wicked judgment on everyone because we're reading about sin on people. It's crazy. That means you can't read his word. Yes, that's what the enemy would want. Don't read, even though it's not about reading only. But yeah, you can't read, you can't speak at all because it's speaking about my sin. That's pride. That's not right. That doesn't, in their own life, if someone did this, they would be guilty of what they condemn themselves. It's just a matter of finding and seeing how. In their own life, their reasoning shoots themselves in the foot. Their own reasoning, the thing being not the topic, but behind it, under it. The reasoning of don't judge me because you said these words. Somewhere in many places in their life, they're condemning themselves without realizing it. When that happens, it's a lie. It's contradicting. It's just condemning self. It doesn't do what it says. This would be hypocrisy then too. And hypocrisy is a big sin because it's connected to all sin. When it's done, it's big. That's why we read that the splinter, it's not about not ever taking a splinter out of someone when there's the right way, right time, a believer to believer. But this is having a splinter in your eye, one sin, and now let's say it's the same sin as someone else. But now this person wants to pull out that splinter, expose it with a wicked heart, but he has the same thing and he's not doing anything. He's the same sin for sin. Now that splinter becomes a log. That's why it becomes a log in the eye, because that's how big hypocrisy is, and it creates an insane picture. That's how the parable works, because that's to exaggerate, to show, which is not really exaggerating, but it looks like that. But this is what it is spiritually. It's that bad and stupid and big. How else do you say it? It grows, it exaggerates, and then that shows the hypocrisy is a real big stupid sin. So it could be a sin for sin, but it doesn't matter what sin. It's not about that at this moment. It's just that when someone pulls out, or see, you pull the log out of your eye, then you can see clearly to pull the splinter. It's not pulling a splinter out for righteous reasons. It just wants to expose and condemn someone. Because if you say you've got a splinter, that's going to make them look bad. But it's doing this while it does the same thing. Now that splinter is a log in that person's eye. Doesn't matter what sin it is. That's how big hypocrisy is every time. It's very, very stupid to the Father. Stupid in heaven. It just contradicts and defeats itself. It's dumb. But it's easy to do. That's why we have to trust in him to see and do. As I do remember in Sunday school, one time, it's a funny picture for me, because the two teachers, while we were sitting in some chairs in a little room, each one separated from the different grades, someone said something. One of them said, they asked us, it's not just, what is the answer? What is the answer they're asking? It's not just the hearers. What is it of his word? And I just said, do, like out of the blue. Like, it was kind of funny because I never spoke pretty much. So people were laughing, and I saw it myself, like, okay, that was like embarrassing kind of, but yeah, that was the answer though. Do, those who do his word, his law. And it's just a funny picture for me, because like, It's one of the only times I ever said anything from myself wanting to, but it just came out. Do. So then it's not the hearers of the law, but the doers of it. And the Pharisees were claiming to the law, the Moses, the law, but they weren't actually doing it, what it means with faith. So Messiah exposed them and said, don't you all teach the law? And yet none of you keeps it. That's a pretty strong claim. Messiah never lied. He means none of them kept it. It's pretty severe. Well, they all thought they did. What on earth is wrong? What's going on if it's that bad of a picture even, where people claim to, but they don't actually? So this lines up with do what they say. They sit in Moses' seat. So it's understanding that when they're reading or proclaiming something from his word, do what they say, but don't do what they do, for they say to do and don't do it themselves. Without understanding and giving understanding, Father, to us, we can't see how that's true. How is it that they say and never do? It's about the heart. They never do what the law requires. Or it requires, but it's to be seen through belief in favor as we deny ourselves. And this is how he gives us the understanding and power to do what's required that we can't do ourselves. When someone's murdering and committing adultery in the heart, they can speak about adultery and murder and never actually keep it. There's a dividing here. They're seeing two things, the natural and the spiritual. So Messiah is saying they speaking of the natural, but they never do the spiritual on what it really means, that the Pharisees cannot see the spiritual things. Therefore, it's a crazy, stupid, blind judgment to them. It's a crazy claim. Messiah is a false accuser now because of their blindness. Because if someone's blinding, everyone else is blind. Then it's like how darkness works, though. No one can see. And we get this understanding of the heart from one of them being healed with their eyes. They were born blind, and Messiah heals him. And he didn't know yet. Who is this? Well, if he's a sinner or not, I don't know. But I know one thing for sure. I was blind and now I see. And if we read that whole thing in Scripture there, the Pharisees are desperately bothering him, even bothering the parents. They run towards someone that's being healed, and they want to bother them in an evil, no good way to try to prove that he didn't get healed. It's pretty stupid if we can see it. Because he was blind. He knows he was blind because now he sees. He knows because of the contrast, and he sees now. He was blind from birth. He never saw anything. And this was something never even done for a miracle like this. No one was healed from being born blind. This was an amazing thing too, also at what Messiah did at the time now. But this is a teaching on what that carnal heart is. It's going to him and saying, who is this? Were you blind? Who healed you? Who is it that healed you? No, yeah, right, you weren't healed. And then they're going back and forth. And then the guy that just was healed is just simply telling the truth that they can't see. He's just telling. They asked him all the questions. He didn't go to them. They asked him who did this, and however we read it. And when he answers truthfully with no other intention to see, with no other intention, just saying the truth that I'm healed, I see, he healed me. Now they said, after asking him, are you now teaching us? You were born in sins. So they didn't accept it. It's an evil thing they did, and prideful and stupid. They bothered him. They asked him. And now when answering truthfully, they're saying, you're teaching us. You were born in sins. You don't teach us anything. Just for answering their own question. How is they already put false accusations on the person. a bunch of false, evil things going on here. Murder is one of them in the heart. It's wicked what they did. It's a wicked work. You know, we have to seek out this truth once he shows us something about it. I mean, we can start seeing the stupidity of something. It's shameful. It's literally shameful and foolish to ask a question with the intention of trying to prove that he wasn't healed. They did not want to believe and did not believe that. That's why they asked the question. That's already crooked. That's already asking a question for a crooked, evil intention. They didn't ask because they wanted to know whatever the answer is. Whether they believe it or not, it's a different thing. They didn't ask because they wanted to know what he says. They asked because they want to try to prove that it's not right. And we even read Messiah after teaching and doing miracles, that this man, if he keeps on going, everyone's going to believe, you know, as if it's a problem. It's crazy. They hate Messiah with vicious hatred. They hate the Father while claiming to believe in the Creator of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Moses. Moses, we know who he is. Moses, we know and obey, and however we read there. But this man, this fellow, we don't know who he is. It's pretty embarrassing. You know, even though his word points to Messiah so many times, even with Moses, even what the Father gave, that someone would come after him, like unto Moses, but it would be greater though, and saying, you will hear him out to the people. And they reject all that. They rejected the Messiah, and people reject the Messiah in the heart today, in darkness. But specifically, the harlots rejecting the true Messiah. It's the same people of old. They don't believe that someone's being healed to see. They can't believe that. Speaking of the spiritual thing now, the real thing, being healed continually to see. That heart is the same thing. It doesn't believe someone's being healed to see the good things the Father gives us to do and see and teaches. They don't believe this possibility. In the heart, what it really is, and not the religion, not the trick, not the image. So there's no way to see the difference without the Father's light in us, his Spirit in us, or it's just going to be do a sin or do a sin. Which one is it? You know, and the good and evil is on the tree. It needs to be divided, good and bad, good and evil, good tree, bad tree. Bad tree never produces good fruit. The good tree produces good fruit because they're the Father's very righteous works in someone. And they don't understand that can't be understood without other understandings about how his favor works and what Messiah's death and resurrection and blood covering on the post, what that does and what it means has to be understood to some degree to understand the good tree and bad tree. Otherwise, you end up with literally saying you can't literally sin anymore. And when someone does that, it's crazy. That's insane. That's like the world falling on someone's head. That's how heavy the bondage is for that. And yet we don't teach and believe to sin, never want to. But that thing is evil. It's not, there's no reality to that. It's not understanding and believing what his favor and blood covering actually is and does for his people. It's not an excuse to sin. When it comes to reality, the truth, then it's rejected, but it can make it look like it believes that all day long because what it believes is not the truth about it. And they teach the lie in there, what his grace is, even while saying right words many times. They don't understand. Why do they think the apostle is saying it's no longer I who sin, but sin that dwells in me? They think this has no reality to someone's life. Now, that's not the only scripture we read. We also read that this does not excuse the heart from let me sin so grace can increase. We read that too. That has to be considered. You know, they think his word is not wise when he gives us the understanding. It's the very understanding of the Father giving us to his word. It can't be broken. It can't contradict the creator of the heavens and earth. But they can make it look like that. They can do the evil thing, but they can't actually do it. Can't actually prove and do that in reality. And many they wouldn't like to hear that someone absolutely can't do something is an abomination to them, because there's no such thing as that. I could do anything, do whatever I want. It's twisted because there's some truth in it if we're looking at it carnally, that someone can just go and do whatever they want. It appears to be true. And yet that's not the meaning out of which I'm saying it. It's not the meaning out of which we read in his word. So then it gets confusing without sight. The confusion is not hearing Messiah's words. And we have the teachings that they will not hear you. If they can't hear me, it's because they didn't hear me. They don't have me. They don't have the Father. Messiah said, you can't hear my words because your father's the devil. You're of the evil one. And his desire, you want to do, you will do. But they heard the literal words, and Messiah is not speaking of this, but speaking of the amazing truth that you can speak all day long. And if they're not of the Father, they can't hear the words. That's how it's said. That's how we read it. Now, some meaning on what that means, that's what he gives to see the reality of this. It's not registering inside them. They're not seeing. It's not believing. It's not understanding. It's trying to understand the words that it hears, but it's not actually understanding why and the meaning and reasons out of which Messiah is speaking. This looks incredibly foolish on the surface without any understanding, because it looks like to the carnal mind that this meaning, you can't hear my words, that Messiah is saying you can't understand the simplest things that I'm saying. That's what it looks, that's all someone has without him, giving us truth and understanding and light. It looks foolish to the unbeliever because they can only comprehend that that's stupid. What do you mean I can't understand the words? I know how to read, I know how to spell, I know how to speak. What do you mean I can't understand the words? What do you mean I can't hear it? You think I'm deaf? And in fact, we do read in his word there, as the Pharisees say, are we blind also? Messiah is giving the truth, and now it's bothering them. He didn't say it just to say they're blind. He's giving them the truth with no other intention. And then they say, are you saying we're blind also? Well, yes, but that's not the point. That's what would be the answer. I mean, we don't read that like that afterwards exactly, but to bring it out. It's yes, but that's not accepted. That's the most abominable thing in the darkened mind and heart, is that it's blind. It doesn't want to accept that. And those that are blind made to see, and those that see are made blind. That's the judgment. And it's connected to everything. For this I came, judgment. It's denial of self and acknowledging the truth that already is, but this is absolute authority and truth on all creation. So it doesn't like that. That's pretty severe to it, pretty evil. That something like this is actually true. That's why they don't see him. That's why they don't hear. Could try to tell someone and they won't, so often won't believe, turn around and keep going the evil way. And then they wonder secretly why they're in death. Wondering secretly why they're in misery inside. This is the life we read about, that Messiah, belief in the Messiah and Father for age-abiding life. We read eternal life is, I think even the literal word and its literal definitions have this connection to the spiritual meaning. It's not about time. It's not about how long. It's about the life, the quality, if you will, the real life he gives. I believe even the literal word has something about that in there, but he has to give us the understanding. Eternal life, taken literally, doesn't make any sense. It's contradicting. to do what's right and say that means we had life from the, well, there is no beginning. You always had life and you always will. Then what on earth is believing to have this life? Doesn't it have a beginning, the beginning of the new creation? So it's therefore not literally eternal. But the meaning is connected to continuing through an understanding. Just like Adam, if he continues to eat from the tree of life, he would literally live. That wasn't the purpose of the Creator, though, because the heart was sick. That would come later, namely when Messiah was born and raised up and everything else we read about him that was fulfilled. That's when the tree of life became available for real. So this life now, I mean, everyone that's anyone that hears someone out there in this world speak of something about his word, they're alive physically if they literally hear it. This is not the life we're reading about at all. That's like the lower thing. I mean, that's to be alive while dead is to be in death. And that's what the zombie picture is. It's being like alive, but you're dead, the living dead. And it's actually it's a pretty good picture of what's going on inside. And it just doesn't care about anyone. It just wants to eat flesh and kill people. Just thinking about itself, raw, just blind and eating people and slashing. You know, I wonder why that's so popular these last few decades, I guess, but especially the last couple or so. It seemed like at some point it increased. I don't know the timing. I don't really, care about getting into carnal. That's what people make things about. Oh, you didn't say it just like this. Nope, it's 1992.5 instead of 1992. They're not discerning the heart. Even if we're wrong about something like that, if our heart's intention was right, that's what mattered. If you didn't do it on purpose with knowledge, but the intention was to bring something out good. It can be carnally wrong. It doesn't matter. You can call the Creator a fool when the intention is to bring out how foolish mankind is, and the Creator's not a fool. Where the foolishness of the Creator is wiser than men. If that's taken literally and only like that, we have some serious problems. Someone might remove all of the apostles' writings because of that one thing. You never know. Because they got offended on this one thing, but then people pretend that they're not offended with Messiah's words and teaching. If they saw what it meant, they saw how his word is all one and can't be disconnected and broken, they would see that if you remove something in it, you removed all of it, because that's how attached and one everything is spiritually, knit together. It's going to be noticed. It's going to delete everything in their heart. It's an evil work to do some of these big lies out there. And look at the works. Look at the works. Look at the result, fruit. They're in destruction and angry and in wrath for doing that work. It's because it's a lie. They're in confusion continually. Plus, that pride always wants to believe something that someone else doesn't have. When we actually do the Father's will, he gives us what this world doesn't have, but we don't do it for that reason. We can't be doing that. But see, the carnality is like, I want wisdom that no one else has. I want to be special like this. They'll claim that for the believer. Of course, that happens. That's what's going to happen. Because that's all they know. They're guilty of that same thing. And a lot of leaders and powerful people do this trickery a lot. It's through them that you can know something. Bypass the Father. Give us a king. Give us someone. Don't give us the Father and just listen to him. Then he'll show us how to keep his word, all of it, through time. Say if, it's like they come up with these carnal things like, then you're saying that nobody needs anyone. Then you're saying there's no teachers, there's no this. No, we're not. Because they don't understand that means we're doing the evil thing automatically. No, we accept that Messiah is the teacher, the true teacher, Father through Messiah, the only teacher, and that there's also teachers, plural. They're both in harmony when the understanding is understood. Because the actual understanding, we never do that part. We don't do this. But he blesses the good way through there being these, as someone can be at the proper time to anybody, if that's what, if that's what's the right thing to do. He gives the understanding through this while we're still not the teacher at all. Absolutely not. Literally cannot do that. Someone would say, then why are you doing what you're doing? Like it's been, and this is a common thing. It's a common thing that carnal man does then. That means it's worthless, everything else. No, it doesn't. It means the exact opposite. There's a lot of blessing and good in doing whatever is good. They must not have it. Otherwise, they would understand. They would not attack it. Anything that's true and good. And he gets us to be content with the good thing. Over time, we start actually seeing it better and agreeing with it. The other thing is nasty. It only produces death and it's stupid. Happy that we're not the teacher. It's an abomination. And yet still not, still one with, still understanding, plural. Because there's a rightly dividing, there's an understanding of how these two things exist. When that's not understood, it's one carnal thing or the other extreme, to the left or right, and people end up on the left or right instead of right down the middle on the narrow way. Either the law is gone or it's not gone, and then you end up nailing it to the stake, or you end up on the other extreme, which is saying it didn't go away, but end up being under the law carnal Pharisee Jew in the heart, instead of right down the middle, the impossible narrow way that he gives us. The path is already crooked from the start on everything. Now he makes it straight for those that ask. By the time someone asks for something for real, there's already an understanding for the person to ask. There's no reason for darkness to ask to make the crooked path straight, because it does not believe that in the heart, that it's crooked, and what that really means, and what it takes to straighten it, which is the Creator himself. None of this is believed. It is the path. It is its own leader. It makes it straight itself. And it's a powerful thing. It's the difference between good and evil, light and dark, seeing and not seeing. And I just thought that was this example of do us in on how it sounds the same. But to see what this means in the heart is the point, though, which we need to get from above to see how it's connected and what it's meaning. That's how tricky this is. This world, self is that without him. When Messiah says, of myself I can do nothing, he means it. All the works he did, all the good he did, all the law keeping he did in the heart, he did not do of himself at all. He's not talking about footballs or something that of himself. He can't take a drink of water. This could be refuted pretty quickly, even to the natural man. He'd say, yeah, that's stupid. It must not be that. Speaking of these real things, doing the Father's works is from above, and yet he does it. It should be for us, yet we do it. We wouldn't do anything without him. It's one. It's what it is to be one with the Father, one with Messiah, working together as one. As Messiah says, the Father and he is one, but he also said all the believers are one. His people are also one, just as he and the Father are one, his disciples, his people are one. He prays for this. that they may be one just as he and the Father are one. He's not speaking of being the creator, as it would be assumed, and then they never tell the people that he also did this and said this for the believers. If you continue their reasoning, then all the believers are part of some trinity and are claiming to be God and are gods. It's nonsense. It's broken instantly with a little bit of sight. It's broken right away. The lie of Messiah being the creator and claiming to be, like they say he claims to be by saying he and the Father are one, has nothing to do. It's the abomination. It's the exact opposite. It's to be knowing what we are, mankind, and to be submitting to the creator so that we do his will. It's the exact opposite of God. It's the only humble way. Anything else is doing pride by doing our own way. It won't be seen like that in this world. It's a big deal. If that's in someone's mind, I don't see how they can understand how to do any of these works that's required when it still believes something prideful. These doctrines, these teachings destroy people. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. They have to come out. It's no good. It's connected to the works. It's all one. It's connected. The works are done. If someone's doing good works, it's doing it out of true knowledge also. It's connected in one. Without any true knowledge at all, no one's doing good works according to that knowledge, whatever it is. It's all one. To divide it is to break it and contradict. It's all one. To try to separate it is already doing a lie. The body and the spirit becomes one. To separate it, it's a lie. The body without the spirit is dead, but so are, it's like with the works and knowledge. If you take one out, the other's definitely not working. Take the knowledge out, it's not working. You take the works out, it definitely has no knowledge. This is not the knowledge from pride and from serpent knowledge of the tree of good and evil through the devil. This is knowledge from above that we need given. And to be given something is not prideful, it's humble. To have our own thing is pride. But the humble thing looks like pride, and it's attacked as pride because they say it is for an image. It sounds prideful to them. It sounds like do us in and do us in. They can't see the difference. So if they see humble, in reality, someone were to see it, then it attacks it and says it's prideful. It's God. It's claiming to be God. When the only reality is that everything is given. The Messiah never claimed any such blasphemy and great sin, but all things were given to him. There's no pride in that. Father's way is perfect. There's no pride in any of his true teachings, none. If there's actual pride in something, it's not a true teaching. It can't be, because there's the knowledge, there's no pride, in the works, there's no pride. It's all working together. There's no pride in his way. It's not a prideful way, it's a humble way. And perfectly that. It becomes very, very good or very, very bad. It's like it's this and it has to be perfect, or it's not and it's broken and it's very, very bad. It's like no middle ground. I don't know if anyone's ever thought like that. Like, I don't even know how to begin to explain it. Where it's like, well, if it was a little different, I can't do it. I literally don't know how to put the words together, but basically it's like very, very good or very, very bad. And his way is very, very good. And the other way is very, very bad. The knowledge of the tree of good and evil, there's no like good, half evil, and then evil. It's good or evil. Doesn't matter what it looks like. A serial killer waving, smiling, and opening the door for someone. See, that looks good. But it wasn't a good work because it was deceiving someone. It's not who it was. Why is it doing that? to blend in. Therefore, that work was evil, but it looked very good. And to say it's evil now, if that's the reality, is evil. It's going to make us look evil. But that was evil work. That was deceitful. You just deceived your neighbor and totally pretended like to be something you're not. And you only did that so you can go and kill someone so nobody notices. Just as an example here on something that can look very good and it's actually evil. It depends what the heart did. People don't like this because it's like giving up self. It means we have to face the Creator and what we really do. And that means giving up on our own self-righteousness. That means there's nothing we can do physically that it's going to prove we're righteous now. It's a death to die. It's no joke. But it's a good way, and the more someone walks in his way, the more they see it's actually good and not bad. And that other thing starts becoming bad when it was good to us. It gets better. It gets better. But it's already backwards at first. It's already, when someone's learning something, it's like a brick wall to go through. It's a war to go through. Any given sin. Inside, it's a tribulation. To give up the soul, and what this is meaning. What this is meaning. Give up our own way and self. Whoever is saving his soul shall be destroying it. I like saying it like that because that's what the word is, even though we would read most of the time in most translation, lose your soul or you lose your life, but that word is for soul there. And lose is the Greek word for destroy, it's just lose, perish, destroy. Whoever saves his soul shall be destroying it. Whoever is destroying his soul shall be finding life. And, one way to find out what something is not is by, run it through, test it. Okay, so is it this meaning? To destroy our soul, literally, like jump off a bridge, and then we see that, and then your life is over. Is that the meaning? We can know what it's not sometimes just by doing that. And so, in this example, knowing what it's not is part of it, but then we still might not know something. Even though we know it's not something, we still might not know what it is. And that's why we ask the Creator to give us the understanding, to see what it means, how it applies. People are saving their soul in darkness. They're holding on to that old man of who and what Adam is in sin. And now they're dying. This is the bad. This is the evil. This is now you're being destroyed anyways. You're not having life. You're being destroyed inside. For holding on to your soul. It's actually foolish. Perfect contradiction spiritually. Whereas if we give up our soul, then we lose our life. That doesn't seem right. How do you live if you do that? And yet for doing that, we live. For those destroying their souls shall be finding life. It's the impossible thing. That the impossible becomes the reality. It's already deep inside somewhere. Like man is afraid to go there. It doesn't make sense to him. This is my life. If I let it go, that's my life, because they don't have any power or sight on the good things yet. So it's impossible. They're not seeing it. So it literally looks stupid to them. It doesn't make sense. But this is just so carnally spoken of in the church world. Like, see, they don't have the understanding. And I can't say any individual, but just overall in the church world. They speak of it as a carnal thing, of something that happened in the future only, when it's applying now. And yes, the future also, but it's now. It's like, let me be religious and just kind of be in death all my life and hope I did enough good works to save my soul or whatever, for the future. It's not the understanding. comes to give us life now. Those that are entering and keep going will have life to come, and those in death are in death. They're going to have to face that death to come. It's going to be an utter destruction. Within, the old man needs to die. The second death, where this death is happening now for a believer of the old man. It's happening first. That's why they're the first fruits. They're coming alive for dying to self and letting it go. And those that are holding on to their soul, and what this really means, they're being destroyed within now, but they have the second death to face anyways. There's no way around it. Judgment. They're going to have to be humbled anyways. And it must be a hard fall to come from pride, to fall from heaven. But those that are getting humbled now will be lifted up, and that applies in our life as he lifts us up. I don't know how many times through learning something, through doing something right, getting humbled. It's already applying to right now to be lifted up through the humble, not pride. He lifts it up. Pride is lifting self up, and it looks something like the humble because they both go up. For an image, it looks the same to the blind. Therefore, if it sees humble, something about it's not right. It's up in the air. It must be pride. It must be what I am. But then it just condemns itself. It says humble is prideful. But what? It's not prideful. It just condemned itself. That's why it does that, because it sees something about the darkness and only sees and speaks out of darkness. To the pure, all things are pure, and to the impure, all things are impure. Especially sexually. Anything that touches on that, it's impure to this world. It's already, wicked and gay and whatnot. As I have seen people do this, Messiah must have been gay or something. It's amazing. And it rises themselves up carnally in their own mind by doing and saying that, when it's actually saying that out of utter foolishness. And it just might be spiritually gay itself. When you do evil, a guy to a guy, and rape someone, it's pretty scary, because this is seen, the spiritual works of this is being done. You force yourself on someone, you lie to them, play games, rape them in this way. It's very much real. And you don't have to do the literal work to be that spiritually in the heart. It's just, I see the wrath of the devil on the earth and people. It's full of wrath and anger, calling people names and faggot and everything everywhere. Everyone except self is, like even said in the world, the problem. But then it tries to condemn people by saying you're the problem, and it blames it. It does the wicked judgment. Since that's an evil work, there's no blessing in it. So the person that receives that hates that person, and the person doing that to them hates them. That's not light. That's darkness. That dark works. When someone sees light, it's what they've never seen before. They've never seen these good works before. If they've never seen a believer shining their light before, they've never seen light before. Might as well be alien to them, strangers, weirdos, aliens. Abraham's called a stranger in the land. It's a strange thing to have the Father on your side in us, to a people that are clueless and not having the Father and not believing at all. It's a strange thing. But we read you were aliens and strangers in Egypt, so now you have to be good to the alien and stranger because you were that yourself. Can't trick the Father. We already were that. It's already done. If we do those works of evil, you end up being a hypocrite, contradicting an evil and condemning self for doing some kind of work that says you're a stranger. do evil to the strangers. You're not part of us, so now we're going to do evil to you. You were strangers first, we read. Everyone who's ever lived before believing, that's what it means. That's what they were first. So there's no way the Father set us up. Oh, I just saw this. Did Elohim predestine some to hell? See, this is where it's confusion for someone, because they have hell in their mind. So then, no, he did not do this thing. But yes, he has purposed all things. He is the sovereign creator who has mercy on whom he has mercy, which is to be seen and separated from, rightly divided from, not having mercy forever. This question is based off of hell, which is a lie. So then it can't be answered directly like that, but it has to be explained that no, he didn't do this. He didn't predestine anyone to be tortured forever. These things have to be given and understood, otherwise it's just going to be foolish and nonsense to somebody. But the hell has to go. It's a lie. It's wicked. But he's actually predestined everyone to be alive, to be conformed into the image of Messiah. That's the purpose of the whole creation, to go through Messiah, to become as he is, which is in the Father's image. And there's only one creator. Messiah is not the creator. Right in Genesis, the whole plan of salvation's right in there for anyone to see. The whole creation sins and is in deception and darkness, but he also covers Adam and Eve, the whole creation. And this plan is already done to the creator, and he already did it through Messiah on what it means in Des, that he died for all. Messiah died for all, not the creator. But the creator did it through Messiah. And so he died on the outside the court of the Gentiles, which is for everyone. And he didn't die in the inner court, in the inside, only for the Hebrews, only for his people. He died for everyone. For those that believe, he gives us life. And now there's a way to walk and do. It's not a joke. You can't just do what, sin causes death. Whatever sin is, someone does it, it's going to destroy them inside. Believers have to find that out on what sin is and what good is. But they're called the first fruits because they become alive in Messiah first, before the many that don't end up believing. But they, there's this hope and belief if someone believes now, today. And it's not some cheap, wicked religious belief, and now you can do whatever you want, never seek the Creator to do his will, but speaking of only real belief. And speaking only of what belief actually means, which has to do with doing his will, which is the Father's righteousness working in us, which means the person will be changing and doing good works if they're a believer. They have to continue in that. So the Father predestined everyone to salvation, but they have to be destroyed first. The old man's got to go. The old man has to die. And simply put, he can start dying now or he can start dying to come. Either way, he's going to die. And that's what we also get out of Messiah's teaching. This is what we also get out of it. He who's saving his soul shall be destroying it. He who is destroying his soul shall be finding life. Either way, both sides have to die. Because those who destroy their souls in Messiah to the old man now are finding life, but they're destroying that old man. And whoever is saving that soul, he shall be destroying himself. He's setting himself up for that destruction. both ways include fire and death. It's either Gehenna fire or the lake of fire. Because Gehenna fire, translated hell in most translations, is it's already believed on what that is by people around the world. When they hear hell, that's, hell. This is the lie. I mean, Gehenna fire is the destruction for sin and unbelief even now. And the lake of fire destroys that old man, but it's coming to life because he cleanses us. He makes us alive while we're dying, or someone's dying within for holding on to who and what they are. And either way, everyone has to die in this way. Adam has to die, and within the day, he died. Within 1,000 years, a day is like 1,000 years. He died. Just under a day, within a day. The Creator, he died. It's part of the judgment. Maybe after the 1,000 years, everyone will be dead to who and what they are, which means they'll be alive. Because we do read the rest of the dead did not become alive until after the 1,000 years. And this gospel is taught throughout his word, the only gospel, the good news for mankind. The Father seemed in all his wisdom to purpose creation to go through hell, to go through sin and death. And as someone starts understanding and believing and seeing the things he gives us, we'll understand it better. But in the beginning, it doesn't make much sense at all. It's contradicting to people. Where they'll ask a question like, why didn't he just do this right from the start? Well, if they would continue on in belief, they'll find out, start becoming in agreement that this is the only good way through this darkness. It gives unimaginable amount of contrast to unimaginable amount of things. It does so many things that it wouldn't be able to do without it being like this. The Creator couldn't be a savior. The Creator couldn't teach us anything. And then you can go on and on. But see, those things don't mean something if someone's not seeing other things and deeper things to see the value and see what it means to some degree. Then we say those things out of seeing that meaning, but it's just words to someone that's not seeing. Doesn't make sense yet. He has good intentions. The Father's not wicked. Wicked heart is wicked intentions. The Father doesn't have wicked intentions. He is light. There's no darkness, there's no sin, there's no wickedness in him. He's a righteous judge, not a wicked judge. And he judges righteously and shows his righteous judgments and power even now through them being judged, through the real judgments existing for sin, not accepting sin, but punishing it. Not accepting evil, but punishing it. People wonder why they're in death. It's because of sin. They can't blame the Creator and say, well, if he's sovereign, and just make up an excuse like that. There's no reality to it. Even though he's sovereign and purposes all things, someone has to find out that they are in death because of sin. It's real. They're in severe confusion because of sin. And once someone actually starts doing what's righteous through belief, they'll have all the proof they need to believe those words, because he makes the difference in us for doing what's right. We see a contrast now of the good that was never there. To believe that sin causes death, you have to have some kind of life to really start believing and understanding it. There's no easy way. The narrow way is difficult, like we read. If you find it, do everything you can to get through it, because many try and don't make it in this life. And it goes back to believing in the Father. That's the only way we make it. but all these other distractions cause people to get close, and then they never enter through belief. Where the wide gate is difficult in its own way because it's constant death and hopelessness, and you never know when you'll be snuffed out for the final destruction. There is no confidence, truth, or peace in someone in this wide gate death. Father makes sure of it so that his word is true for everyone. So there is no easy way. It doesn't exist. It's in his word that there's no easy way. Both hard and in its own ways. But there is great reward through the difficult way now and to come. And there's great shame and judgment now and to come for the wide gate. Messiah says it's better now to cut off the hand that sins and the eye pluck out that causes offense than to be cast into Gehenna with your whole body, and be set aflame in destruction. It's better to cut off that sin and suffer some pain and have life for doing it, for being destroyed, instead of holding on to the whole body and all its sin and be set ablaze in destruction anyways, inside and to come, be exposed, because all creation has to be exposed. Adam and Eve are exposed. No one gets the Father's righteous covering, sacrificial covering, until they're exposed first and acknowledge who they are, naked, sinners. As long as they cover themselves, they're saying they're good, they're covered. I don't do any sin, I'm good. Okay. This is who the Father is. He doesn't play games. Even though he's sovereign and purposed everything, no one can play mind games or mock him. Still, nevertheless, in reality, we have to do what we read and what it means. Do what it means, which we get from him. Can't play these mind games with the creator of the heavens and earth. Not a joke. But evil is a joke to people. Sin is a joke. It's a game. It ends up being a game for everything, for all evil. Just the evidence for this is overwhelming, that it's a game. People treat it as a game. It's a game to the kids. They have to grow up. This game is killing them. This game wants to rip your head off. The wrath of the devil. It's just a trick for a few minutes of pleasure, and someone gets the wages for that sin. The righteous wages for it. And if he didn't do that, he would be a lover of evil. But his judgments are proof that he doesn't accept evil, because he judges it. It's not the understanding of now man can't sin. It's about who the creator is and what evil and good is. Someone could kill someone, but there's a strong judgment, sevenfold for the one that kills the serial killer, or the killer that kills the killer. Sevenfold judgment for the one that snuffs out Cain, that snuffed out Abel. That's how he shows his different varying judgments, lesser and greater. It's not that man can't literally do that. On the contrary, it's doing a lot of sin only. But it's to show this strong judgment for strong sin and lesser judgment for lesser sin. So the worldly wisdom would be, it's better to do the less evil thing. No, it's not. Through an understanding, it tricks someone and it's better in some kind of way, but it's still evil. It's still death. It's not better in that way. The only good thing is to cease the sin. Accepting the lesser evil doesn't make something good or make someone good. It makes them lesser evil, if you will, and that's no good. It's still evil. That's how man works in his heart to raise himself up that's in darkness. He just compares himself to something he thinks is darker. Compares himself to Hitler or something. Now he shines like a light. That's not truth. It's twisting the truth, which is a lie, where there's some truth in it that has to be pulled out, explained now for its real meaning. But when that's not done, it's just a straight up lie. The fear of the Creator is to hate pride. Like we read, pride, he resists the proud. So now we never say, go and be prideful. That's how you kill someone. That's how you keep them away from truth and belief. All pride is evil and sin, and he resists the proud. Is it prideful? He resists it. So only humble, which beats us to the dust. Where you come from is where we go. Back to humble. Raised up is false. It's not reality because man's dust. He's not anything above that. To think he's above that is false and is pride. But if we would just acknowledge the truth, he'd beat us into the dust like he is for his people. And out comes the new man. That the impossible thing comes. But dust says he's up in the sky somewhere. It's false. He's going back down. And he's going to be pounded to the dust spiritually. Everyone. His Messiah will dash the nations with the rod of iron to pieces. That's to break everyone's cold rock heart that's prideful. So that's the beginning of destroying the old and bringing in the new, is destroying the old, dashing it to pieces, the stony heart that never changes. Dash it to pieces for a new moldable heart. And then some of these scriptures, they're like any scripture, can be a stumbling stone and rock of offense where it crushes them. Or it's their salvation, or it's understanding, getting understanding and living it. Or that same word is going to crush someone and they'll be offended and trip over and be crushed by the rock of offense. Drawing away even further. Drawn away even further. I think that's all I have here. Because he does not harbor ill will to you, and he will not keep his wrath to you. Yes, thanks for hosting. This is the truth. And he won't be angry like we read forever, and that's an understanding. But we also read elsewhere that it's like a moment to him. It's like a moment of anger for a little while. Someone can see the value of the truth, the good news, who the Creator is. All right, peace, take care, seek truth from above.